Hey everyone, I'm Hemant Banawat. I work at Yugabyte and I manage the performance efforts that we undertake at Yugabyte. With me, I have Sonal, who works in performance engineering here at Yugabyte. In this presentation, we are going to talk about the different efforts that we undertook to scale Yugabyte for 100K warehouses. We will talk about the different efforts. Although we are the lucky ones here to present this complete effort, but there have been multiple teams and multiple people who have worked on it. The agenda for the presentation will be primarily, we will go first through some TPCC overview and implementation. We won't go into a detail, but just to build the context here. Then we would like to talk about the 100K run that we did and the results and on what kind of setup we did this run. We'll talk about them in detail. Then we will talk about the journey that we undertook for this 100K, right? What were the different things that we tried? What were the different enhancements we did inside our database, as well as what were the enhancements in the client side that we did, right? So we'll talk about that journey in the second half of the presentation. Okay, so starting with the TPCC, right? So TPCC the models, TPCC benchmark basically models a business that has a warehouse and inventory for those warehouse. It is kind of an order entry environment wherein it is assumed that there are multiple terminals inside a warehouse from which operators are doing transactions, right? These transactions might be like creating new orders, or making entry for delivered orders, or recording the payments, checking the status of the orders, or monitoring the level of the stock at the warehouse, right? So this is what TPCC the transactions are more or less about. TPCC is primarily designed to scale with the number of warehouses. So when I say this, so for example, if you have one warehouse with 10 terminals, if you have 10 warehouses, you have like 100 different concurrent requests being sent, or 100 concurrent transactions being done to the backend database, right? So that is how it works. And with TPCC, the performance metrics that we use to gauge the performance is transaction per minute, or it is like number of new orders generated per minute, right? So that is the metrics that that TPCC has specified to be used. Okay, now let's talk a little bit finer details about the implementation. Now, when we say that there is a warehouse and it has got 10 different operator terminals, what it means for the TPCC client, which is doing these requests, is that there are 10 different threads, right? And these 10 threads are emulating an operator, and these 10 threads are doing the transactions, right? So if you are, let's say, doing a 100K warehouse, that means you are doing about 1 million you have about 1 million threads, right? 1 million threads doing transactions in parallel, right? Now, each of this thread emulates an operator. What that means is that since in warehouse you have an operator, that operator is actually running a transaction. So that operator is not only running a transaction, he's also doing the data entry, as well as he's thinking about the results that he has got from the transaction, right? So as part of that thing, a thread emulates an operator. It has got a transaction API request, which it does to fire a transaction, but at the same time, it introduces some sleep in the transaction, some sleep inside the complete flow before and after the transaction. It is the keying time, the time spent entering the data terminal, and the thinking time, which is the time that an operator spends to read the result of the transaction. So these are like specified by the TPCC transaction. So now, if let's say you have 1 million threads because you are running a 100K test, not all threads will actually be doing the transactions at the same time. Maybe few thousands are doing the transactions. Rest all of them are either in the keying phase or in the thinking phase. So basically, that means they are sleeping at that moment, right? Now, each thread which has to do the transaction, it is picking up the transactions randomly, right? That randomness has also been defined by TPCC. So we pick, let's say, new order transaction 45% of the time, we pick payment 43% of the time. Order status, stock level, and delivery are less frequent transactions, and we pick them 4% of the time. So each thread is doing these transactions in same with the same probability. Now, there is one more metric that we use to define how the test did. This is the efficiency. It is derived from TPMC and tells you how close YB gets to the theoretical latencies. Right? So, for example, if you have, let's say, 99% of efficiency, what that means is that you are pretty close to your theoretical latency that a system can achieve. If you are, let's say, less than 95%, I mean, you are doing pretty bad. You must look at your performance bottlenecks in the system. So that is how it goes. So this is a brief thing about TPCC. Now let's quickly, let's go to Sonal, who will walk us through the different 100K run numbers that we have got. Over to you, Sonal.
Thanks, Hemant. Hello, everyone. Myself, Sonal Agarwal. I am a QA with over 11 years of experience and currently working on performance profiling of Yugabyte DB. To start with, we at Yugabyte are very happy to announce the successful run of TPCC benchmark with the 100K warehouse load for Yugabyte DB. This is done using the 63 node cluster of the Yugabyte DB. Not only we had a successful run, but we also achieved more than 99% efficiency across the clients. The TPMC, that is the transactions per minute, was about 32,044, and the throughput was recorded as 1182. The average, so to mention about the average execution time across the different transactions, it is around approximately 17 milliseconds. And we also record the failure, now the number of failures that we have. So the new order transaction had approximately 0.23% of failure rate. The payments transaction had approximately 0.88%, and the delivery transaction had about 0.11% of failure rate. These transactions we retry, and we'll talk about it later. To talk about the CPU utilization during this run, so the CPU utilization was about 75% across all the nodes of the Yugabyte DB cluster. Yeah. So let's just, so we have the numbers above. So talking about the setup of this cluster. So for this successful run, we used a 63 node cluster, which had 3 master nodes and 60 T server nodes. These T server nodes were configured on AWS using the C5D to 12x large machine instances. Yeah. So this is the server side setup we did. And on the client side, we used 40 clients. And each of these clients worked on 2,500 warehouses. So we had seen that we are able to run from each client, we are able to run, successfully run 2,500 warehouse load. So this is how we have come up to the number of 40 clients. But we can scale more, but to avoid any bottlenecks, we are using 40 clients now, but in future we'll try to reduce the number of clients here. So the benchmark was run using the latest enhancements from the TPCC Yugabyte TPCC application that we have, and we'll have a look at the enhancements in the later part of the session. So talking about the execution of the run. So during the load phase and the execute phase, all the clients were communicating with all the servers in the cluster. The load phase generated about 33 TB data. And after load was completed, we did a compaction of all the tablets across all the T server nodes. The execute phase was run for with warm up of 30 minutes and a runtime of 120 minutes. And the run was done using the performance automation framework that we have developed in-house, which made this task very easy. And we'll talk about it in the later part of the session. Over to you, Hemant.
Yeah, thank you, Sonal. Yeah, the performance automation framework definitely made things quite useful for us, quite fast for us.
Yes.
Okay, now let me just change the gear here. Since we have seen like these very great numbers, I mean, there had a lot of effort that went into coming to these numbers, right? We had put in a lot of efforts both across the DB side of the things as well as in the client side of things by understanding and making the right changes, right? So I will talk about them. I will talk about them one by one. The journey that we had, I mean, in very initially we came to know that the workload with TPCC is CPU bound and not IO bound, primarily because most of the reads and writes involve your primary key or index keys, right? So it is primarily a CPU bound workload. So what we had to do was, I mean, to scale up, we had to reduce the CPU usage. I mean, by reducing the CPU usage by multiple ways, for example, reducing the RPCs between the machines, doing a fine-grained locking so that your machines don't have to fine-grained locking so that your rows don't get logged so that the other transactions don't conflict and fail, right? You reduce the number of failures by taking multiple steps so that the failures get reduced. Then you move less amount of data between the nodes. For example, when you are sending the data from your query layer to the backend storage layer, you should send as much less as possible so that that is utilized accordingly. And then you would also like to do better reporting so that in future you might want to have a better view of things so that any other bottlenecks can quickly be found. Okay, then we did different database improvements, right? One of the earliest problem that we hit was like in Yugabyte you have tables, and each table has got multiple tablets. Tablets can be considered as shards. We have this one system tablet called as transaction table, which has got multiple tablets. Now this table is used to coordinate the transactions, right? So it is always good to have a transaction tablet local so that you don't have to do remote calls to coordinate the transaction. So if a node is coordinating a transaction, it's better to talk to the local tablet node, right? But what was happening was that for the early initialization of cluster, we were creating in a very large cluster, we were creating transaction tablets only on few of the nodes, right? So what was happening that a lot of transactions had to travel to and fro to multiple machines to coordinate the transactions, right? So that was kind of something that we could improve easily by ensuring that the transaction tablets are created on all the machines, right? So that was one of the initial enhancements that we did. Coming to the second one, we had this, I mean, we have this in a transaction, if you have a foreign key check, right? If you check whether the parent table has an entry for this key, right? So that is a foreign key check you do. We used to take a strong read intent. Now these are the read intent, you can call it as strong read lock as well. Now we have these different types of lock that we take on the rows as well as columns to ensure that the consistency is maintained. And there are like different types of lock. You can see in the matrix here that there is a interplay between these locks. Like one lock, if you have taken, can you take another lock or not? So that kind of thing. So whenever we were doing a foreign key check, we were taking a strong read intent. And what used to happen was that if we take a strong read intent, the columns of that row cannot be updated by any other transaction. So any foreign key check used to block the parent table row, and then updates to that parent table row used to fail, right? So that is something we avoided by taking a weak read intent, weak read lock, so that that row can be updated, but it cannot be deleted, right? So those kind of things improved the performance. We saw less failures, and suddenly we started getting better efficiency. So this was one of the things we did. There were multiple enhancements that we did for fine-grained locking, like just from the locking semantics. I mean, and here are the two primary ones. For example, while doing, let's say, select for key share or select for update, and when we had a composite primary key, we were locking only based on the first part of the key. So for example, here, if you see h equal to 1 and r equal to 10, we used to only lock based on h equal to 1. So what that would mean is that it won't lock a single row. It will lock multiple rows, all rows which have h equal to 1, right? So if you can do a final locking here, and you can also lock based on r equal to 10, which is the second part of the primary key, you will see less locking in the system, because you will lock only a single row which is part of the primary key, and eventually you will see less failures because of conflicts, because other transactions might be trying to access row which have, let's say, h equal to 1 and r equal to 20 here, right? So those kind of things improve the transactions, because we had less conflicts in the system. Another one was one of the this is one of the very sophisticated enhancements that we did. I mean, if you have, let's say, two different tables, sorry, if you have one table and you are running two different transactions, and each transaction is updating a separate column, right, in the same row, we should not conflict. We should not conflict, because these two are like totally. And again, this was all the interplay of the logs, which log to take so that the other transaction should succeed while this I'm sorry, while this transaction, I mean, both of the transactions should succeed. So that is what we wanted. So this is the change that we did. So now if you have a single row, and if you have two transactions updating the different columns of the row, you will be able to update them. And this helped us a lot in the TPCC test, because there such things happen, right? So that was one of the enhancements we did. There were like other DB improvements that we did. One was like in certain cases of update, we were sending all the columns. I mean, you are doing an update, you are updating only few of the columns, but you are sending all of the columns to your storage layer, which is DocDB. So you send all the columns there, and DocDB does not know which one has changed. So what it does, it ends up locking every column inside the DocDB itself, right? So all the columns get logged, and now no other transaction can operate on that particular thing, and it starts some transactions might fail because of this. So what we did was we ensured that in the query layer, we compare what is being updated. I mean, we compare the old and new tuple, and we realize that, okay, this can be updated and this cannot be updated, right? Sorry, this is the updated one and this is the non-updated column. So we only send the updated columns, and in the DocDB side, only the updated columns are getting logged, right? So that way it was the locking reduced, and we had better results again. There was one more enhancement related to the data movement. We were doing an index scan, and while scanning the data, you will have to read the data from the original table. Now, in certain cases, I mean, in many cases, what we were doing were we were also querying the columns which were not part of the query, right? For example, here, if you see column, it is not necessary to read column K and V2 if you are accessing a third column V3, which is either indexed, right? So when you are accessing column V3, you just don't want to read the column K and V2, right? So so if you don't read those columns, there is a less data movement, the transaction become fast, and all those kind of things. So these were the different DB improvements. We had multiple other efforts. I won't go into detail of this, but we had multiple efforts to improve the performance, which didn't work out totally, right? For example, we tried to create covered indexes and duplicate indexes on different types of tables, right? This improved the read times as expected, but obviously the write times got impacted, and we didn't, overall efficiency didn't improve much, right? So that was one of the things. There was another change that we did initially. It was like we had this, I mean, all the clients connect to a Postgres server, sorry, a Postgres backend, because since we are compatible, we call it a Postgres backend. So all the clients connect to this Postgres backend, and this Postgres backend talks to all the different T servers. Now, for every connection, you create a Postgres backend process. So let's say if you have some 1,000 connections, you will have 1,000 Postgres backend process, and each of these Postgres backend process will be talking to each of the T server. Now, on a smaller cluster, this is fine, but a large cluster like a 60-node cluster, each of the Postgres process will be talking to 60 of these clusters, right? So there is an explosion of server-side connections here, not the client side. The server-side connections have exploded suddenly. So what we did was we made enhancements so that the Postgres talks only to the local T server, and it becomes the responsibility of T server to talk on the common channel between the other T servers, and there were less number of connections that were happening. We included this, it improved the performance initially, but over a period of time, there were multiple changes that came into the product, and this stopped helping us going forward. So right now this is in disabled mode. So but in certain, if we have a need, we can enable it and start using this particular feature. Then we played around a lot with RocksDB compaction parameters to improve the performance. It didn't help, and we realized that, okay, the defaults are good enough for our use case. So yeah. So yeah, these were primarily the DB efforts that we had. Over to you, Sonal, to talk about the different client side improvements that we did.
Thanks, Evan. We have also done some enhancements to the Yugabyte TPCC application. So TPCC has different transaction executions. I mean, these transactions, we execute different SQL statements. So we perform detailed analysis of each of the SQL statements that are run, and we have done optimization to get a better throughput. So I'll mention few of those here. So one of the changes is using select instead of select of for update. So this change is basically done in the new order transaction, wherein we when we are performing an update to the stock table. So we are doing a select for update, which is unnecessarily holding the logs because we are this is unnecessary because of the kind of isolation level that we are using. So we just remove the select, so the for update from the select, and with this we are avoiding acquiring the extra logs that are there, and also this reduce the number of conflicts that were occurred. The other change that we have done is using of stored SQL stored procedures for getting and updating the stock table. So here we with this actually we have reduced the number of RPC calls that go from the client to the server, and the statements are also executed in parallel. So with these two achievements, we have actually seen that the CPU utilization had also dropped and the efficiency also went up, and it was around by 5%, up by 5%. So talking about the another change that we have done is update returning instead of executing select and update. So here we made the changes for the update statement to return the projected columns. So this way we reduce the extra trips to the T server, and hence we could see the improvement in the performance. Yeah. So the few other improvements that we have done is from the client side is we are retrying the failed transactions here. We actually lose the king and thinking time of the failed transactions. So on retry, when these transactions are succeeded, then the efficiency improves as number of successful transactions count increases. The other change is that calculate the transactions in a steady state. So the TPCC we run in a warm up and the measure phase. So few transactions actually start in the warm up phase, but they finish in the measure phase. So we are including these transactions, and then this is done as per the TPCC guidelines. Okay, so we have also done the improvements in reporting the TPCC run results. So the major the changes here is reporting additional information for the failed transactions, the retries that we perform on the failed transactions, and the connection acquisition latency numbers. So the reason behind this is like these provide us early indicators for the performance bottleneck and help us concentrate on the specific areas of improvements. So I've just, so this is the sample output of one of the runs that we have pasted. This is just a snippet of the run, the output. But the actual output contains the results for all the types of transactions executed in TPCC. We also have the aggregation for all the transactions as in the output. The first part is the results, wherein we have display the TPMC efficiency and the throughput obtained in the run. The next is the latencies. This is mentions about the latencies So average latencies of the execution for each transaction, the number of transactions that were executed, and also the connection acquisition latency. The next is the failure latencies, which give us the count about the failed transactions for each transaction type here. The worker task latency is tells us the time spent by like for each transaction in each area, like fetching, keying, executing the transaction, and then the thinking time. So it provides a split up of all for all types of transaction. And the last is the retry attempts. So for whatever failed transactions, we perform 2 retries, and it displays us how many like transactions still failed after the retry. Yeah. I would like to talk about the performance automation framework that we have built in-house. So this performance automation framework helps us run the TPCC benchmark end to end, doing all the client side of work, like installing TPCC, all the initial configuration of the machine, and all this is handled by the framework. We just have to have the YB cluster up and running. Just with few clicks, you are able to run any kind of TPCC workload with any kind of configuration that you want with any number of clients here. So even like this automation framework has helped us save the time in execution of TPCC framework, and also it is done without any manual intervention. This also provides us easy analysis and debugging as we have the output on the console of the automation framework. Yeah, thanks. Over to you, Arman.
Yeah, I think we are done. Thanks a lot for watching this presentation. Any questions, we are available here. You can post them to us. Thank you. Thanks a lot.